All right, guys, we have a special treat with us today. Shelly Ellsworth is a veteran loan officer here at Benchmark Mortgage and is a member of our broader Northern Arizona team here. And really excited about you joining us today, Shelly.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're having some good laughs as Shelly is an amazing human being, but doesn't love to be, as much as she is excellent at her job, she doesn't love to be in front of a camera.
No.
So, but you're doing it just fine. We're going to have a great conversation today. And so let's do an introduction. Let's see. I like to play the guessing game on introductions in the sense of me spitting out as much as I know about you and you correcting me where I stand. So Shelly Ellsworth, over 25 years of lending in the White Mountains, right? Is that the best way to define your region of lending, or northeastern Arizona?
Yes, I'm actually going on 28 years.
28.
We have to count. We have to count every year in this business, every year, Chris. So yes, 28 years.
Exactly.
And
the good ones and the bad ones.
Yes, but all 28 years on the White Mountains. That is correct.
I love it. It. And you raised, how many kids total?
7.
Between you and Alan, 7 kids.
7 kids.
And then how many grandkids right now?
There are 16 grandkids and 1 more on the way.
Congratulations on that. So, yeah. And you enjoy let's see. And so here we go on the long walks on the beach. So I know you enjoy fitness. Like you got a personal trainer, you're getting after it. I love that. You enjoy spending time with the grandkids and chasing them in the multiple states that you have kids spread out between, and then keeping up with your realtor and your business partners. I know that's a big thing, that you actually love who you work with in that small town community because you have to, and you genuinely, sincerely do. Right? Am I nailing it so far?
You're doing great. Why did I have to be on the call?
And you, I don't know. Yeah. And then let's see. And you and Alan are how many years married?
We are going to be hitting 24.
24 years married.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And Alan, as much as he tries to give you a run for your money and drag you on hunting trips and all sorts of things, that it's still 24 years strong. So
we're still going. Yep.
Yeah, so that's Shelly Ellsworth. And to a lot, I know you're going to be putting this out there with a lot of people out there in the White Mountains watching. And I am excited for a lot of people in my market to be seeing this and kind of understanding as we talk through the mortgage market and what we've been going through in the housing market. And you're seeing maybe similar things out there in the White Mountains, maybe different things. So let's maybe dive right in there and just talk about, you've seen 28 different markets, 28 years in this industry. What are your thoughts in the context of what's different about the current cycle we're going through? What's hard about it? What's going to be changing? What are your thoughts, Shelly?
And I think, just like you said, in 28 years, we've obviously been through a lot of ups and downs in this area. Right now, I personally feel this is one of the hardest in the 28 years that I've gone through. This is definitely the hardest. I will say it's the hardest. And I think it's just because we're in a little bit of a combination of everything's kind of put together with the struggles that we're going through right now. We're just like everybody is. We're going through struggles of inventory. We're going through struggles with affordability. That's my number one thing right now is affordability. And so the interest rate, hike in interest rates, it's not that we haven't seen higher. I know I personally have seen much higher in being in the business for as many years as I've been in. I think it's the combination of all of it hitting at once. It's not just interest rates, and it's just like, it's everything. The lack of inventory, affordability, the higher interest rates, even when it comes down to the cost. The cost of getting a loan is much higher than we've seen. Not that it's at the highest, but it's a little bit higher than what we're seeing. So when you put all of that together, And I believe, and this is just an opinion of mine, is that I've never seen the media be as strong as it is in today's as it was years ago. And there's more fear. I deal with more fear than I've ever dealt with in the 28 years I've been in business from the client side.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of interesting. We talk about fear, and I'm kind of trying to capture that and think of mine. So I've been doing this 14 years. So half of Shelly. I'm a half of you, really humbly and sincerely. But when you like there is a lot of sensitivity and there's a lot of fear. And I think it's maybe the fear of where this is going. Would you say like fear of the future? I think there's just a lot of economic unknowns in this current inflationary position. Like we, and that's where I think we're hoping. Hopefully, a lot of folks that have already tuned into you are very much like on, are knowing that hey, May is supposed to bring some different inflation data.
Correct.
May is supposed to bring or start to eliminate some variables, right? Like hey, inflation is just not still running rampant. We've eliminated that variable to a strong extent that's getting better, and then fear of likely recession, which we're heading into, and other just general fear of the unknowns. Is that what you'd say is mostly that fear of
Correct.
people, the fear of the unknowns and the fear of like, do you deal with that in the White Mountains as much as like fear of, can I afford this town? Cause I know we deal with that really bad in Flagstaff.
Yeah.
Is that still an issue for you? Cause what's the ballpark?
You nailed it right there with the fear of, I sat on a round table the other day, and that's exactly, we're just a bunch of people trying to get together, different divisions, just trying to get together of how to help these younger or first-time home buyers. And that's exactly what we talked about. It is the fear of them not being able to live in the White Mountains anymore, that it's just not as affordable as we've been known for. And it's not there. So it's the fear of moving their families, moving their jobs, transferring, and that's where I'm seeing it. Yes.
So a couple of things about that market, particularly as best guess. I'm putting you on the spot with it. Give us and if you're a realtor partner of Shelly's, you can call us out, correct us, but average median sales price right now in Navajo? I know it can be quite drastic, right? Yeah. But yeah, in Navajo in general though. Yeah.
So we on that roundtable, there was some of us that put some numbers together, just kind of looking at different things. And from what and obviously, we're not exactly accurate, but we're seeing for Navajo County, it was 350. And Apache County, we're looking about 336. However, this was just kind of blew me away. We ran some listings, and there was one site-built home under $300,000 in entire Navajo County. So we're talking, this is Navajo County, not just Pine Top Lakeside. We've got Heber, Overguard, Woodruff, Winslow, Holbrook. That's quite a spread there for Navajo County.
Yeah.
There was one house site-built, and it was $299,900. Everything under 300 is manufactured. A lot of single wides. We've got the tiny home community in Navajo County is really blown up, which is great. There's a lot of that. We see a lot of that. And so we're like, let's just bump it up to 400,000. Let's see what we find at 400,000. And then we just narrowed it down to Pine Top Lakeside, Sholo, my immediate area. And there was 26 homes that we found for under 400. So again, site built, and 11 of them were active. They were already, pending. They had pending. So it's just, so then with here, Chris, you kind of do the math where you're looking at 400,000 in that 400,000 range, which is going to be more of what is available for somebody. You look at our average income of about 55,000. Who in today's world doesn't have debt? You put those numbers together. You put that together. It doesn't add up. It's just when it comes down to affordability, we're struggling here. With that side of it to try to find something affordable for these first-time home buyers, and not even first-time home buyers. So I don't want to classify it into that direction, but it's just we're finding it not being a very affordable place to live.
relative, and I think the key part too, and I'm careful on some of these things. My mind goes lots of different directions. Is I'm certainly empathetic with everything you just said, but at the same time saying it's not a very affordable place to live compared to what it has been.
Correct.
Right, and I think that's where, you know, when we make comparisons, right, on like. Move out to, you know, there's balances in real estate and there's so many different pros and cons. And that's where I think what people, and this is more maybe a statement on our psychology, that we're typically pretty poor, I think, in understanding consequences. Right. And to say, hey, we in Arizona, maybe you've seen that chart where we're like up 400+%. It's like 430%. Real estate appreciation since you started, like in the 90s, right? So the last 30 years, we're up like 430%. Other states and areas that haven't had the same growth that like Arizona and like the West, because really that's like it's really heavily concentrated in the West. If you guys haven't seen this chart, call Shelly, call me, we can get you this chart. But basically seeing the last 30 years of appreciation, Utah, Idaho, Colorado, Arizona, California, and I think fairly steadily in like Oregon, Washington, like have all had like massive appreciation in the last 30 years. And like you go into the Midwest and like East Coast, it's more like 200%, which, you know, still is positive, but that means like, hey, if you've owned real estate in Arizona, like even the last 5 years, like you have done well, and that's awesome. And like pat on the back for investing in real estate in Arizona. But then all of those who are considering investing in real estate in Arizona, this is not and you know, I always think of it like a business where, you know, when you have your what do they call it? Like your founder type mentality of like, hey, we're getting in this tech business. It's super risky. We don't know. You're going to have to, you know, invest a lot of time and effort to take this thing off the ground, and who knows where this will go. But if you owned, you know, that little bit of Apple stock or whatever, Amazon, when it was just an initial startup and was, you know, not the mega giants that we know now, then sure, you're going to get a better price. But we're on advanced tiers of Arizona's already on the map, right? It's a very, very attractive place to live. And I guess, so to define maybe some questions here, where do you see, so we're going to ask a lot of subset questions in this, where you see the White Mountains growing. I know like Flagstaff, we talked about last podcast, now I'm remembering, with one of my realtor partners, Nicole, about getting updated occupancy numbers for Flagstaff. Like we're probably over 50% like second home community up here in Flagstaff. And I say like anecdotally, that feels about right. In all the neighborhoods I've lived, you got couple neighbors here and there like that, that's their second home. What would you say? Do you have an idea if is that a similar statistic for White Mountains, or what do you guys see as far as a second home?
Yeah, I'd have to say yes. Previously, I would say we were probably very similar to what Flagstaff. But what we're seeing more, what I've seen more, even on the different loans that that I'm doing, is since COVID, you know, we've got so many different people that are now remote. And so they are able to buy here as a primary residence. And just with, you know, it's a small town. We know everything here. We can tell you can almost tell what's going on with just when you pull out onto the road with the kind of traffic. And over the last year, we've noticed more traffic year round than we ever have. I mean, traffic didn't seem, it is definitely picking up again, because we always pick up about the 1st of May, where your summer visitors do come for their 6 months here. But even through the winter here, we still noticed heavy traffic. So I do believe that our second home community is it's not as much of a second home community as it was. But I do truly believe when it comes down to pulling the numbers, I think we're going to see it that second home's gone down, for the fact that everybody can now get loans calling it a primary residence, to where, because they work remotely, so they can still buy as a primary, or they might be living up here, you know. So we've seen that shift a little bit like that. And you know, when we do talk about the affordability, obviously, with the lack of inventory, people are still living here. People are still moving here. People still want to live here. So it's definitely still a wanted area for people, just like Flagstaff. I mean, you have quite the population there, considering, our population is quite smaller, but people still want to live here. It's still the outdoorsy, the forest, the lakes. It's just an outdoor community. So it is still, by any means, homes are still selling here, and it's always wise to buy. It's just the affordability for certain buyers is where I was going with that.
Yeah, which is interesting because I'd probably put you just off the cuff. I would probably say we're anywhere from ballpark 100 to maybe $150,000, $175,000 when you're more for similar inventory, right? And so when you're saying, hey, we got up 400 to 500 or under, sorry, it was 300 to 400. You're seeing 26 houses.
So the 300 to the 400
at that time frame
range, there was 26. Yeah, 26 site built.
Yeah,
so, site built homes.
Yeah, so I'd probably say like right now, like 350 to like 450, like site built detached, so not townhome.
Correct.
You might deal with like a couple in the Flagstaff market, and you're going to be more so like usually pushing 500,000 to find it in town site built detached.
Yeah.
So that affordability is relative though, right? And so that's what's interesting. And I think, my general, thought and feel for it, is just that, it's still that pandemic or post-pandemic mindset of, like you said, people being able to work remote, people also deciding like, do I really want to live here or do I want to live in the, there's a lot to be said in living in, like a high, or low population density, high forest density, right? Mm-hmm. And to having a high exposure to nature and the different activities that come around with that. I mean, you guys have your ski resort, and I'd be curious to see. I know we've had so much investment in Snowball up here in Flagstaff. Have they been doing a lot of improvements and things with the resort there, or it still gets a lot of traffic regardless, right?
I think it still does get a lot of traffic. It's been so many years with just not having the kids that we just don't go up there, but. From my understanding, there has been, some, with it being, on the reservation, fund wise, I'm sure they have to, obviously they don't have a huge amount of funds to do certain things, but it still definitely brings in the people for sure.
So when we're trying to talk about where does this break and where are the solutions? Like that's, again, where I just think, what was it? Someone was telling me that they were sitting in, I think it was maybe it was like a realtor board meeting or some type of HOA board meeting. And they're like, we just have to figure out how to like cap prices. And it's just funny to me where like, again, in certain mindsets, if you wanted to buy a house right now and you're like, oh, I love the idea of capped prices. But then as soon as you own that home, that idea doesn't sound so good anymore. Right. And so, it doesn't mate with the open market. So knowing that we can only change so many things, like let's go real talk with your area. Is it going to be a matter of, like you said, it's not going down anytime soon, real estate wise, right? Inventory sounds like it's pretty tight at certain price points, right? Mm-hmm. Are you seeing multiple offers in cash and that type of stuff in your market as well?
Yep. That's exactly what we just talked about. And was it, some of the agents that I do work with, they definitely are still seeing strong, cash coming in. So if you've got the cash coming on in quite strong still.
Yeah. But where is this going to break? So do people, I think, what are some of the breaking points that you're seeing or sweet spots where do people need to just be comfortable driving further? Do they need to be like, do we need to be able to say goodbye to some comforts of the middle class at certain points, right? And I say that I watched this. It was a Dave Ramsey clip with his daughter was saying like, here's 10 things that the middle class just is going to have to be more comfortable with, in the sense of like, one of them was having a stay-at-home parent, right? Like that's a challenge to say, hey, at 55,000. Right, because what's your minimum wage is lower than what we are here in Flagstaff.
Oh, basically, gosh, that's terrible. Yeah, I don't even know what it is. I believe, but I know we're a little bit lower than you.
Yeah, we're at 1680. So I'm pretty sure that most places in the country are lower than us right now.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so that could be like 55,000. Like if you're, two full-time professionals are going to be making above that. So is that where it comes down to? And obviously some of these are case-by-case answers, but what are some of the solutions that you think people need to start creatively thinking about right now if they want to make the White Mountains work?
So, I just this morning had a conversation with a gal that I have pre-qualified, and we've been back and forth probably for about a year now. And obviously rates were, different last year. And so her and I have been going back and forth. So she sent me, I just asked her, I said, do me a favor and send me 6 months of bank statements. I just want to see, I just want to do something for you. Send me 6 months of bank statements. And so, because she's just like, there's absolutely no way I can afford that payment. I went through her bank statements and we just had a call this morning, and I said, I don't want to offend you in any way. I'm just trying to help. But I see $425 that is consistent every single month on these 6 months bank statements that I personally feel that you could get rid of. And I asked her, we went over everything. And I said, how do you feel? Do you feel you could cut back on this stuff? And she's like, I've never even looked at that. And I said, 425, that's a huge difference in house payment of where we can go with that, because she still qualifies. It's just personally, she did not feel that she could afford that house. So she was super stressed out about the payment. And so when it comes down to that, I think it's budget, Chris. I really, truly think that people are going to have to relook at budgets and figure out what they can and cannot live without if they truly want to be a homeowner in certain areas, because things are a little bit more expensive. And, and I think that we get into our habits and we get into our spendings, and it just becomes, we have to. And sometimes it just takes a third party to look in on something and let me just see your spending habits and what are you doing? And let's talk about that, because she's like, I didn't even realize I was spending that kind of money on this stuff. So I think it's budget. It really is going to have to be, people are going to have to reevaluate their budget and their finances, their income, just all of that, to see how it fits in for their life. Because I don't know about your rental prices there, but our rental, just to rent a home here, it's not much difference from buying. So.
No. And those have just continued to keep pace with the market. And so I couldn't agree with you more. And I know it's hard to hear those things, right? As again, we're a highly comparative psyche as human beings. And so when a lot of people, just because of market conditions, a lot of people could say, hey, I haven't saved a ton of money. Rates are really low. House prices are low. I mean, affordability was at historic levels, meaning that when we look at affordability indexes, just so everyone has a visual chart of this, and it basically says, okay, it takes so it rates out of 100, and to say, okay, if you are at 100, that means that the median home price and housing costs is in line with the median income, right? And I know you know this, but just for our many viewers here, Shelly, to say, okay, if affordability goes above 100, that means the cost of housing is above, or it's unaffordable, right? Do I have the right? No, it goes the opposite direction, right? I forget. If we go, so a higher number means more affordable, and a lower number means less affordable, right? So yeah, so if we go above the 100 on that index, it means that housing is more affordable, and there's more discretionary income. Or if it goes below, it means it's less affordable, right? So there's not enough income to cover that housing payment. Have I said that right from your standpoint?
Yeah.
Okay. So when we look at that, and if we look back over the last decade, that's what a lot of people need to understand, is we were at historically high affordability levels, which means there was so much more income on the table, and housing prices and just cost for housing was so much lower than the average wage, to where you could kind of from if we look at this from, let's use your fitness analogy, right? Of being able to say, hey, if you want to run a marathon, and you went from the couch to a marathon, you could do that this last, like from 2010 to 2020, like you could do that when it came to housing. You didn't have to think about it much. You could say, hey, I'm going to get a 1 month head start on trying to buy a house. I haven't really saved much. I'm going to use down payment assistance, and I'm going to be able to afford this payment and be comfortable in this payment. And you could do that in that decade. Right. And so what it means now is it's not like, oh, the marathon's not worth running now. It's like, well, you can't just come off the couch and think that this is going to happen. Like maybe some of your family members, neighbors, friends were able to. And that's just life. Right. So I think like we were saying of like $425 a month, how much of us could all do that and realize like waste ultimately? Like we've gotten so used to conveniences of, grocery deliver and door dashing and the Dutch Bros, the amenities. And it's like, how much, if we really got serious about this, like a marathoner would have to be and say, hey, I need to, tighten the belt a little bit. How many people would realize, like, just like you're saying on the monthly budget, but where I was going with this as well is it makes me think of, if you got that running head start at things, $425 a month compounding per month after 12 months of savings. So some delayed gratification, which we're not used to, but 12 months of savings puts that client with a good start to something.
Correct.
Right. And down payment, I think, is really the value of down payment is really underplayed right now, right? Because a lot of folks are so caught up in that higher interest rate. And yes, they're going to come down. We're already seeing that. Today's a good day in the market. Yeah. Next week will be even better. But if you don't finance a lot, you have the interest rate's less important, right? And I know that sounds tongue in cheek because this is coming on the time, just like, you've nailed it right on the head when you said there's so many different factors that have just doubled up on the conditions right now. And one of those is historically low savings. We as a nation have very historically low savings.
Correct. Yeah, for sure. And, and that's with one of the agents that she was actually, this particular lady that I was dealing with, she was referred to me. She was working with a different agent, and then she came to me through another agent after she switched. But one of the other agents she was working with previous was just like, oh, well, then you just need to find another lender that has a better interest rate, or you need to find this, or, you need to get online and find that, to where, that's another thing in today's world is they need our families buying homes. We have to sit down and go over everything and really sit down and almost put a pen and put a paper to everything, pencil everything out for them so that they can see it, because not everybody is looking at the true of your family for lifelong. It's not just about, oh, hey, this online lender is quoting, like say we might possibly be quoting them maybe in the mid to high sixes on something. And they're like, oh, well, this person's saying 5%, to where, yeah, we can do 5% too, but do you want to pay that cost when it comes down to the whole cost of thing? And that's where, and I'll be honest, just say it, it's frustrating. It is so frustrating that just to get somebody in a house, we have some people are trying to just go get a better rate, just go find a better rate, and then you can afford that house, instead of truly knowing the ins and outs of, can this person really afford this house, and does it really make sense to pay 2.5 points, 3 points, or whatever we're doing to get that rate when we know we're going to be in a refinance. So again, it comes down to just educating, to where I almost feel like I need to sit down as much with my partners and educate them on that as well. So just kind of in a tough little situation here, right here, with affordability, like you're talking about, educating, and but yet I get where the agents are too. They're trying to sell properties as well. They're trying to get things sold, and inventory is limited. If they have a buyer, they need to get them going. So, and it's always a good time to invest in real estate. Anytime somebody calls me and says, do you think I should buy, is really now a good time for me to buy. If you can afford that payment and you qualify, you need to jump, and you need to jump now. It's always a good time to invest in real estate. Now, if you're going to think you're going to flip it in 6 months, it's probably not the best time. However, it's always a good time to invest in real estate.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack what you just dropped there, and there's so much truth in so much truth in the strategic piece, and that's what a lot of people are could downplay, right? And to assign, so let's real talk out there too of like, there's currently even like heavy lawsuits happening about realtor commissions and so many different things happening to where like, all right, if we want to say that a realtor is not worth their commission and a lender is not worth what they charge based on a particular rate, and advice and strategy and lifetime partnership mean nothing, well, that means nothing across the board, right? And so I believe very heavily. Obviously, I have some bias in my position in this industry, but I have seen it. I mean, you've seen it more than in your 28 years, and I've seen it in my brief, humble 14 years here in the business, where like the knowledge makes all the difference. And I say this is one of my favorite lines constantly. And I was just talking with Cole, my assistant, about this morning on my team, where the one of my favorite things about real estate is insider trading is legal, right? Not if you want to take time to get more knowledge about a property, about a product, about lending tools, about strategy, and you want to get more knowledge than the next person, well, guess what? You can put yourself up better and create opportunity for you that the next person just doesn't have. So you have insider information, whether it's you're working with a great real estate agent that's well networked and they can find out about this listing that goes to market, haters are going to hate, but it's a matter of like, no, that's how the game is played. And so the same thing of someone that says, so here's how I think that plays out as well, as someone that says, oh my gosh, I'm going to go, work with a credit union or a bank or someone that I can get a little bit lower interest rate. And, I had this happen. I'm not trying to cash too much shade here, but you and I are very, very firm where the value proposition lies is in saying, well, guess what? The same client I talked to just yesterday and was starting a qualification with me because they found out that the loan officer wasn't working Mondays at the other place, or that they needed to do something pretty fast. And the other person just saw them as kind of another number, get in line. We need to get all this stuff before I can even help you. Whereas we were able to say, hey, we can be quite flexible. There's still some bars that we got to hit, but let's see how we can help you. Right. So essentially, where it's coming at the end of the day, if folks really think that, hey, I'm okay accepting, because let's be honest, and I'm gonna just say this straight out, you are accepting a lower service standard if you are shopping for price alone, because that is exactly what you're getting. Check their NMLS numbers. Did I show you how to do this? Do you ever tell clients to do that?
I have not. You told me that. I need to do that.
You can go, so everyone, yes. You can go to NMLS, that's our National Mortgage License, whatever system, NMLS, Consumer Access. You can punch in the digits on their licensing number, and you can see a self-reported employment history, which is part of our mortgage licensure. And what does that show you? That's going to show you Shelly's been in the business before she, forever. And that's going to show you, especially if their number, because how many digits are your number?
Well, so
You're 6?
I worked at the bank. Yeah, I'm 6 because I worked in the banking side too.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. So when licensing came out in 2010, everybody, that I think it started with 6 digits is what they started that with. And now you're like seeing like 7 and 8 digits. Okay. So you're like all of a sudden in numbers of thousands of people have joined this industry, and which, hey, everyone's got to start somewhere. I totally appreciate that. But what you're going to see, and I've seen this, is a client saying like, hey, I talked to Joe Schmo in North Carolina and they're offering me these crazy great terms. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, just like you're saying, number one is I can actually get very close, if not match those terms. But we already talked about how that strategy is not the best for you, right? So that's number one, is they're just throwing numbers to make a sale. And number two, you go look at it and say, well, they've also been doing this for 3 months. And not that I don't believe that everyone should have a start, but they might not have the abilities and knowledge to actually either navigate the transaction or the post-close in this scenario. Because I'm pretty sure, so let's see. So I have my predictions that I've spoken heavily on this podcast. So not holding you to it, Shelly, what do you think interest rates are going to do in the next 2 to 3 months, 6 to 12, 12 to 24? What are your predictions?
So my predictions, which we're going to see some slight, which we already are, we're going to see some slight downward in the next couple months, I believe. Possibly year end, mid fives. And I think next year we possibly, one little thing could change this is I possibly think we might see under 5 in a year. Possibly.
Okay. I'm a little bit more aggressive than you on this one, and we'll see. I don't want to be. I want you to be right, but I think I'll be right because of my ego. But because what you're talking about would mean that we find more of that soft landing with the Fed. So everyone, kind of to get that context from what we're seeing, right? And is that a more normal, sustainable, 2 wasn't a 30. No one's going to lock your money up for 2%. Right? You're going to give someone hundreds of thousands of dollars over 30 years to pay back at 2%. No one's going to do that. 3%. No one's going to do that. 4%. Not a lot of people really want to do that. So a more sustainable rate, right, for our economy, and a lot of economists have said it's probably in the 5 to 6 range is in full honesty, right? Now, again, prices have gone a little wonky. We need to find that supply and demand, equilibrium essentially. But so if we could say, hey, we're getting in the 5s, maybe sub 5 for a little bit, I think that's what would be healthiest for us. I'm thinking within the next 4 weeks, we are mid 5s.
Okay.
I'm thinking we'll be by June into the mid 5s, just with the inflation data coming out. We're already touching certain products. We are below 5 right now in certain products and certain cost scenarios. So I'm thinking we're like mid 5s pretty steadily into the summer here. And then I'm thinking a lot of experts are calling for 4s maybe by the end of the year.
Yeah.
I think we trend exactly to that. And then my predictions are that, and I was talking with Jim McMahon, one of the owners of Benchmark, about this, and he was careful on that, of saying like, yeah, we even get into the 4s. So he's thinking the 4s, but in looking at the charts with it, is you actually saw in the 70s and 90s, we came off these high inflationary cycles, and we actually saw in the 70s, actually in both cases, I think rates dipped a little bit below where they started at. And so my predictions are the Fed has overbaked this so much, they've damaged the economy that we'll continue to see. We'll be in a recession. We're going to be in an election cycle. Yeah. And everyone knows that strings get pulled, stupid strings get pulled that have long-term consequences. So maybe, no, don't hold me to it, but maybe we hit the 3s for a brief minute, right? And so with all of that potential, right, basically down is the worst is behind us. Like what can we say with confidence? The worst is behind us. It's only going to get better.
Right.
So let's talk about that. If someone's financing, $400,000 or average loan amount, or you probably like average loans close to like 350 or so.
Correct.
Probably?
Yes. Correct.
Okay. So if someone is, let's do some math here. Math is hard, Shelly. So if someone is financing $350,000, let's just call it like a 6.25 right now, just ballpark, because again, we don't want to buy lots of points and things right now,
Correct.
Right? Because we're going to refinance. So again, everyone know that you're seeing some really sexy rates online or something, but that is buying points, which don't make sense with a quick refi. So we're like 21.55 on a 30-year fixed, which if I go like 5.25, 1932. So let me just do the math on that real quick. So you are talking, I can't punch things in and talk at the same time. I just realized this about me. Like $223 per month of savings, right?
Okay.
So, and of course, Benchmark is waiving all lender fees. Benchmark Northern Arizona is waiving all lender fees for any for refinances of these current clients. You're doing that over there in the White Mountains as well, right,
That
Shelly?
is correct. Yes, I am.
She's 100% doing that. And so you're looking at super low, relatively low refinance costs, to say at $200 savings per month. But that's at the 5.25. And so there's I would put out a pretty significant likelihood that folks are going to see, like you said, even just going to your 4% estimates, that they could save probably another 100, 150, 200 plus per month. So Shelly, do we wait 12 months to hypothetically get into the 4s, or do we refinance at the end of this year? We're in the 5s. What do we do, Shelly?
And I think that just goes back to what I said a little bit earlier. If you can get into a house and you are pre-qualified, get into that house, buy the house, and then we look at refinancing and we watch where rates are. That's where you and I, this is where it's a relationship base. We are staying in contact with our families monthly. And then we look to see where the market's heading. And do we refinance now, or we look to see where the market is in 6 more months? That's what you and I are here for, to guide these families in the way. I can promise you these online companies are not going to do that for them. It's not happening. So that's where I'm at with it. If you can afford it now, and if you can painfully, if I hate to even use those words, but if you can make this work for the next 4 to 6 months and you can get into that house with those payments as of today's rates, go now. So,
amen.
Yep.
Amen. But I think that's the biggest thing for people to realize, is that what you don't get is that personal touch and that personal care, because I can guarantee you it's all math, right? And it's not personal, to where when they're saying, hey, you're going to get notices in the mail and inundated, and you're going to get calls from not the loan officer you worked with, but some refi call center that could be tied to the credit union or bank that you use. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you reach certain mathematical thresholds, they'll put you on their calling list and they will blow you up. Because as soon as you're saving 80 to 100 bucks a month, and they think, hey, that's enough to get you on the hook and for us to do a transaction, you will be inundated with phone calls. Right. Yep. And so, but not realizing, like, ask the question of, like, where are rates trending? What's the mortgage-backed security market doing? What are experts calling for interest rates over the next 1 to 3 months? Because, and it becomes extremely personal. And I know that about you, Shelly, is that you take, like you're saying, these aren't transactions. No. These aren't, borrowers, they're families.
Correct.
Right. And what might work for one family, and I do think, and that's where I'm prefacing this with a lot of my families and clients, is that you actually might jump twice. Because I think a lot of people, as we're getting to those rates and we're looking at, like, hey, we might be in the 5s for a little bit, but you're saving 200 bucks a month. As long as you are in this refinance for like 3 months, you've recouped it. Right. And every month that is saving. So let's pull the trigger, and knowing that, hey, and then we'll see where it goes from there. And we'll be very personal, because each loan amount, each interest rate change, right? Those are things that we're going to be wanting to be very personalized with. I think a lot of people might be a two-stepper, right? Because again, you'll save 200 bucks a month, and then you'll wait and save 200 bucks more per month. And it actually penciled better because, well, it took rates to fall, because they're not just going to go this steep decline. But that I just, you and I are obviously preaching to the choir when we talk through just the value of someone that personally cares and is going to run your numbers and not spam you, right? And not be calling you all the time when rates just dip a little bit, and you see on the news that rates dipped. And so all of a sudden everyone's going to say, hey, save your 100 bucks a month. Well, why save 100 bucks a month when you can save 200 bucks a month? And we're not being market gamblers here. This is just data-backed decision points.
Correct. You nailed it with all of that. And so it's, I know we have with our partners, and I think if the one thing I could say, and I just wish with not trying to offend anybody, with any partner out there, let us do the rates. Let us talk the rates. Let us talk the fees. We know the ins and outs of our files. We know everything about these families. We not to say that our partners don't know what's best for them, but when it comes down to a financial situation, that is our jobs. And I wish that, I know everyone's kind of fighting for the same transactions here. And so it's like, we're pushing to get them approved, but we need to be the ones, if there's rate or fee issues, come back to us. If the family happens to call them with that, we need to have these conversations with them, because we're the ones that can advise them in the right way. We don't want them just being thrown to an online lender just because it might be something as silly as $50. Let's talk about this. Let's look at this. And again, like you just said, I cannot stress enough that all these rates that people are seeing, I got online today and was looking at a thing, and I just have to laugh at some of the rates that they're quoting out there. Well, you and I, as we know, you and I can both quote those rates. But that's not the best thing for the client. And there's so many fees. Like, I had a fee sheet the other day, and they're like, well, look at this rate. This is a great rate. And I was like, there's $21,000 in cost on that. So is that the best thing for you? And I mean, just to say those words, $21,000 in cost, because I've been in this business for so long, it's just like, I remember when I used to be able to tell all of my partners, oh, just average $5,000 for closing costs. We used to be able to say that. And I pray we get back to those days to where it's a little bit more affordable in that sense right there.
Yeah.
But, again, just let us have these conversations. Let us take that off of your plate, because we are the experts when it comes down to fees and rates and what is best for the overall moving forward of the family.
Yeah. And I think it comes down to, and I believe in this. I believe in this, where it really does come down to belief, right? And it is a belief point where, as we continue to shift in our economies and technology and adoption of technology, how many, I was attending a funeral up in Salt Lake City area last weekend, and you're driving through, have you heard of Homey? Are you familiar with Homey? Homey it's basically Utah's version of like Open Door, but it's very heavy in that particular state. Okay. That it's just basically an online sales, they'll give you a cash offer, buy your home type stuff, or like, or list. They'll also list, I think. And I think it's more heavily on like the listing side, but they're not charging typical commissions, right? At least as they advertise, right? That you can sell your home for a couple of $1,000 versus tens of thousands of dollars on a typical real estate commission. And so, hopefully some of your partners listen to that, or like, it's not that we're trying to be like, I know some people probably get a little nervous when that, a simple single digit percentage sounds nice and low, but as you calculate the math on that, you really have to say, hey, is it better for people to just go for the lowest budget, cut costs, do limited listing brokerages and things? And it really comes down to that there is so much to be lost or gained when we're talking about the biggest investments that the average person typically makes in their life. And they only historically do 7 to 8 of these, right? The amount that they can gain or lose is so significant with the wrong advice that for anyone to be operating outside their area of expertise, you got to pick one path, right? You either believe that you're getting the best advice from an agent, you're going to work with the best realtor, you're going to work with the best lender, with the best title company that has your back and personally cares, and that that you will actually end up getting the best possible costs and gain scenarios when you are working across the board that way, versus if you try and be chintzy here and chintzy there, and just think, oh, I only needed good advice in one area of this transaction, or this one person could do it all. I really think, and it's very interesting to me where, and I know it works out, and there's a lot of people that want to DIY. I'm a DIYer when it comes to certain things. I have lost a lot of money when it comes to doing DIY the wrong way, and time. And so, so I can get that when someone really wants to dig in and to buy real estate without an agent, or to buy, and it's like, hey, if you want to go that track, that's one track, but it really are two separate tracks. Like trying to get stuck in between is just doing the, having a foot on 2 skateboards, and it doesn't end well, right?
Yep. I completely agree with everything you just said on that. So even when I have a deal right now that's a for sale by owner, and they keep calling me, asking me a bunch of questions. And I'm like, this is why I advised you that I did not think this was a good idea. I still wish you would. Can I help you? Can we at least try to get somebody for a fee to help you do this? Because I cannot give you that advice. I do not know enough about that side of the transactions that I could get you in trouble with this. You really need to have an agent. So I support all of my partners, and I very much try to go that direction because that is their expertise. They know, and they get paid for what they get paid on transaction is because that is their worth. And I believe the same thing in our profession as well. So when you cut fees and you cut costs, you can end up with a problem. So.
And it's kind of that same cringy, like when you and I hear that of like, oh, a realtor's like rate shopping for their clients or something. And you get that cringy, like, oh, this is so outside of their area of expertise because they aren't identifying the client's goals, objectives. They aren't fully aware of how the different financial pieces work. It's the same thing for me to say like, oh, like my mom here in Flagstaff is an agent and I'll just use them in my Pine Top, like I know agents cringe in these Northern Arizona communities where it's so tight and so unique that it's like, no, a Phoenix agent should not be, unless they are truly in that market and really then aren't a Phoenix agent. If they really, are living there in the summer times or really have their back to that market, should not be representing in your market. And likewise here, they don't know the pulse and the dynamics. If they don't live in the communities that they are actually listing and helping clients buy in, it's scary. It's super, super scary. And so I know it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You get me worked up on these rants here. So we're very much on the same page. Sorry, I get going there, get worked up. But yeah, I'm optimistic. And I think just like we're saying here is when you talk about affordability, if I were to say, hey guys, there's single family homes on market under 400,000, I have plenty of clients that would say like, I'm all about it. And so I think that people are needing to also assess the markets they want to live in, right? Like there are not that I'm wanting people to start, packing up the vans and heading over to Show Low and Pine Top. But I think that people need to realize you can get trees, you can get beautiful mountain towns, and you might not have, the same commercial amenities that Flagstaff has a little bit. I think that's really the only thing that we really have up on you, right? Is Flagstaff just has it's a little larger population and a few more commercial amenities. But otherwise, a lot of things are very, very similar to the White Mountains, right? Or is there anything I'm missing that you compare out with, right?
No, I would say that. I mean, it's just, again, your population it's quite larger than our area. But yeah, there's some amenities that you have in Flagstaff that we don't hear. I don't know a lot about the Flagstaff area, just besides, just in town and stuff like that, to where we have, I feel like we're not as condensed as Flagstaff, but I could be wrong with that. Because I don't know your area as well. I just feel like everything's kind of packed in a little bit more in Flagstaff versus here.
And I know it's just kind of like you do have a little bit more of it. I would agree with that because you do have like a little bit more of an urban sprawl when you start talking about like, all right, driving in all the way from like, and I know folks over there are going to crucify me for this because they're so territorial on how everything's just so different and separate. I think I've told you where I had a client that had to drive it 15 minutes from Pine Top to Lakeside or to Show Low. And that was like, I've got to drive into town. Like that's 15 minutes, right? So it's all relative, right? But then you hit that sprawl from Holbrook to Snowflake to, is it Belly Button or what's the...
So Belly Button is just like a little town in between Snowflake and Taylor.
Yeah. And Taylor, now, do you see some pretty big price discrepancies between all those towns or are they kind of trending fairly similar?
No, it's definitely as you start from, obviously Holbrook and then you come up to Snowflake, the Snowflake Taylor area, then Show Low, then Lakeside, then Pine Top. Prices are going to get a little bit more expensive as you come up. Pine Top is going to be more of our higher dollar.
Peak prices.
Yeah. However, you still have the gated communities in Show Low that have some higher prices, so surrounded. It just, I believe like Torreon has more of your surrounding of the pine trees as well as Pine Top does, so it just depends on the area, but like property taxes, they get higher as you go up. So that's definitely, I feel like Pine Top's a little bit higher priced when it comes down to more like manufacturers and stuff like that. You're seeing them a little bit higher priced up in the Pine Top area versus Snowflake Snowflake area. But the inventory goes so fast in even the Snowflake area, when those prices are coming in, anything under that 300, they are on the market days and they're off. So they're going quickly in any area, I believe, in Navajo County.
Yeah. Well, and one thing as you're talking through that and just thinking of, if I put out, let's see, average U.S. commute. Take a wild guess. What's the average U.S. commute?
So U.S. average commute.
Yep.
43 minutes.
Total let's see here. Sorry. And this is just one data point here, right? I think average in 2019 was 27.6 minutes is the average.
In what year?
Right. This is as of the 2019 census.
Oh. Well,
okay.
Actually, yeah, maybe not now.
If you drew, let's round it out to 30 minutes, right? If you drew a 30-minute radius around where you want to live, not the center of town. Everyone knows downtowns can be expensive or different, right? Not a lot of people are like downtown driven, but if we drew a 30-minute radius around where we wanted to live, or from I guess that is from commute distance from like your actual employer, I think a lot of people in my area and your area would both be surprised on that actual affordability. Don't you think?
Well, and I think we have seen that. And I think that's why there is such a limited inventory in Snowflake and Taylor now, because that is about 30 minutes. That's 30, 40 minutes, depending on what part of town. But we are seeing that more people that's again, goes back to the limited inventory, because more people have reached out to those areas and have bought in those areas. I know several people that live in, work in Lakeside, Pine Top, that are now living and have bought homes in the Snowflake area. So I've even have just this week that are looking in the Holbrook area, just because they're saying there's a little bit more affordability in the Holbrook area. So that would be about an hour drive from Lakeside to, Holbrook. So people are doing that.
Yeah, I think that's within an average, right? And we gotta be so careful with those comparisons and averages, and that's where I think it does circle back to where folks got to connect with you. They got to connect with me. They got to get that personal direction. And I love that you went to that, you found that $425. Yeah. That's a Shelly Ellsworth. That's what someone that's like 28 years in the business does. I haven't learned those tricks and tips yet. But that's powerful, right? In the advisors and the right direction right now. I think there's just massive, massive opportunity to be had here. And I think those that are sticking their head in the sand, thinking like, woe was me, I should have bought last decade. Like, no, we're on the cusp of a lot of things going to be changing rapidly, a lot of opportunity, a lot of affordability that's going to increase. We're already seeing affordability get much, much better. The worst is behind us. The worst, the interest rates is behind us. The amount I calculated it, and this was based off of like a $500,000 purchase price. But basically what my estimates of how much more purchase power people are going to have with where interest rates are going is, in the next 24 months could be like a 6-figure difference. Right. You're going to be able to afford 6 figures more because of the shift in rates. It's some good stuff. So I don't know. I think get on it. Like you said, get on it now. There's good opportunity to be had.
I'm going off of your forecast now. I'm going to say Chris Hallows said. So that's where we're going, Chris.
We'll have to figure out something to bet with.
There we go.
Okay.
All right.
Anything. And that's where we sign off. Okay, Shelly, this has been awesome. Do you have any other major points that you want to make sure to get out there on the public waves here, public service announcement waves?
Just bring your families to us. We'll get them in a home.
I love it. Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much, Shelly. And we'll stay tuned to what's happening.